المعالي والسعادة والضيوف الكرام، نأمل أن تكونوا قد استمتعتم بحفل الاستقبال ليلة أمس وقد تمكنتم من التواصل مع بعضكم البعض. في هذا اليوم لدينا جدول أعمال حافل ومثير، وجلستنا الأولى لهذا اليوم ستتمحور حول الدور الهام للشراكات في تحقيق النتائج لهذا العمل ولمستقبل الشباب. أود أن أقدم لكم زميلتي أورميلا ساركر، نائب مدير البرامج في منظمة Generation Unlimited اليونيسف. تتمتع أورميلا بخبرة تقارب 25 عام في مجالات التنمية الدولية والتعلم والتوظيف، وستقود أورميلا هذه الجلسة وتقدم لكم المتحدثين والمشاركين. فتتفضل أورميلا.
Shukran, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, honorable delegates, esteemed partners, and especially to the dynamic young people here in the room. I'm delighted to be moderating this important and really timely discussion on the power of partnerships. Having had the same privilege to do this 2 years ago, as many of you will recall, on the last high-level meeting on learning to earning in Jordan. It's been really inspiring to witness since that time how much you all, as in your countries, have rallied around the commitments to empowering young people with skills and with opportunities. And as we know, in the region and in the world, societies are grappling with rising insecurity, rising inequality, and environmental threats, including climate change, post a global pandemic. At the same time, we also have the largest generation of young people in history. 1 in 4 young people in the world today are not in education, training, and employment, with young women twice as likely to be in this situation. And the majority of young people today in the world are employed in the informal economy, often working in poorer conditions and with less social protection. We heard yesterday from a number of the speakers, an estimated 30% of young people in this region, in the Middle East and North African region, are not in education, employment, or training, and with young women at a staggering rate of 42%. This is substantially higher than the global figures I just quoted. And we have youth unemployment rates in this region are more than double the global averages. So considering this context, the question we have before us is, how do we ensure that young people, and our young people today, not only just cope, but are also able to adapt, to benefit, and really thrive from the green and the digital transitions? And it's really their ambition, their passion, and I think you'll agree their ingenuity that will fuel the solutions to the world's biggest challenges. So as we, I think I'm moving to the next slide. The global scale and complexity of these challenges faced by young people today means that no single government, organization, or foundation or business can address these issues on their own. And that's why we're having this session today, this morning, on partnerships. And the initiative I represent, the Generation Unlimited, is one such public-private youth partnership. It's comprised of many people, a lot of the institutions you have represented here in the room today, from government, from civil society, from the United Nations and multilateral organizations, and especially, and most importantly, young people. And anchored in UNICEF, since its inception in 2018, this whole initiative has grown and is now nearly active in 90 countries globally since that time. We just issued our annual report of results in 2023, and lots of exciting results and progress despite all these challenges in this region. And we have seen the impact, the youth-powered impact benefiting over 64 million young people in 2023 with opportunities in employment, skills, entrepreneurship, and civic engagement. And we have also seen this represented in the region. And we're going to hear, I think, a bit more about it on the panel, which I'm excited about. One such example from Egypt and the Shabab Balad, as they call their Generation Unlimited in Egypt, with the government coming together with the UN resident coordinator and country team, several prominent private sector and youth leaders in the country. Shabab Balad is rolling out large-scale programs benefiting the young Egyptians in the country. And outside the region, we also have a number of examples, and one I'll just mention is in Brazil, the 1 Million Opportunities Platform of Jobs, UNMIO for short. And this leverages this type of public-private youth partnership structure, which in just 3 years has been able to connect over 500,000 young people into job placements. And it's not just about private sector or youth only, but they came together with ministries, labor, education, youth, strong interministerial coordination, and also with the different agencies for quality apprenticeship and through systems and good policy. And we've also seen programs working together with private sector, co-creating programs like the Passport to Earning program, which provides young people with work-ready skills around the world, working with private sector like Microsoft, like Accenture, Dubai Cares, and others, and is live in 7 countries, with several countries in the pipeline to spread around the world, and even in this region. So if we look at this session, just to take you through, what is our objective? So first, we want to profile specific partnerships between government, private sector, youth-serving organizations, international financial institutions, youth, and the UN, and really look at delivering results at scale. And we also want to enable these important key actors in the region to advocate for broader stakeholder engagement, and finally inspire partnership initiative and action among both in person here and all of you here today, and really the follow-up, the concrete action ideas based on what we were hearing yesterday, but also virtually, because we have a number of participants, young people, organizations that I know are listening in online. And so for the session flow, we will have, after I speak, we'll have a keynote address from one of our dynamic youth leaders. We'll have a panel discussion with a rich mix of stakeholders, following which we will open the floor for a discussion because we'd like to have a bit more interaction, and this will be facilitated by our young leaders. So please be ready with a question, and then we'll wrap up the session. I'm delighted today to have a diverse and esteemed panel who we're really waiting to hear from. We have with us from the government of Egypt, General Adel El-Far, Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. We have Ms. Basma Abdul Khaleh Tabit Mohammed. She's the member of the Youth Advisory Group from Yemen. We have Mr. Jurjen Middelhoff, the Dutch Ambassador for Youth, Education and Work. Ms. Kauthar Abdulhakim Abdullah, the project coordinator from the Sheba Youth Foundation based in Yemen. We have Mr. Fahad Malik, the head of partnerships with Silatech, and Mr. Mohammed Al-Hakim, the founding partner at EQIQ, based in Iraq. And then we'll be very happy to hear from our co-organizer, the UNDP, Ms. Suzanne Dam-Hansen, the hub manager, who will share closing remarks at the end. So with that, in the spirit of placing young people at the center of our partnership, it's my pleasure to invite a very impressive young person to the stage to provide the keynote, Karim Ihab. And Karim is the co-founder and CEO of the Green Compass Advisory. He's a leading sustainability expert in MENA as well as an aerospace engineer, and is Egypt's delegate to the COP28 in Dubai, and a member of the COP27 Youth Task Force, so very active on issues of climate. He has influenced global climate policies at his young age and through his meaningful youth engagement in those forums. And I've had the pleasure and the honor to meet him on the margins of the high-level meeting, Youth Advisory Group, and we got a chance to meet and talk, and I know he's been very active in shaping these 2 days that we have before us. So now I pass to you, Karim, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So first of all, thank you so much, Uma, for this warm welcome. Really appreciate it. Good morning, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, and fellow youth. Today, we stand at a pivotal moment in the Arab region as we are facing a very complex challenge. We face that 30% of the youth in the region are neither in education, employed, or in training. Although it might seem as a challenge from the outside, but it's actually a great opportunity. And solving this complex challenge will never be through one entity. When we look at the audience that is present here today, we will notice that we have different ministries, different organizations, different youth groups, and so forth. So how can we enable these groups through the power of partnerships to be able to solve this very complex problem? So this is not the first complex problem that we solve through the power of partnerships. Actually, there are very good examples that we have seen before. So I'm going to share with you some of these examples to kind of get inspiration and look forward to the panel to discuss more how can we solve the problem of employment through the power of partnerships. First of all, definitely the organizer of this session, GenU, stands as a staggering example and an amazing example when it comes to the power of partnerships. The inception of it itself is a multi-stakeholder, and at the heart of it is the PPYP model, the public-private youth partnership model. And youth not just being part of the partnership, but in the heart and driving force of it. Another amazing example that we have had in Egypt is the EG Youth for Climate Committee. So we have had COP27 Youth Task Force. We had an amazing and historic engagement in the COP conference, the biggest conference in the world. And then we wanted to sustain the engagement of youth. We want to make sure that it's not just about one thing, one conference. We want to make sure that it happens and it keeps evolving. So what we had is, we had a partnership between the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and all the UN offices in Egypt to have the first youth delegation in the history of the country. And when we say the youth delegation, we had the party badge. We were equal to ambassadors. We were able to participate in the negotiations with 190 countries, represent the voice of the youth, and also drive the global negotiations on climate change. So this is indeed a very successful example. Also, there has been, so in order to enable these two examples, when we talk about GenU or when we talk about EG Youth for Climate or other powerful partnerships, it's all about the powerful leaders that drive these changes. And I've been reading this amazing book that's called Bridge Builders, and it's talking about how we're going to solve the future problems and very complex problems that we have. For example, the triple planetary crisis, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about biodiversity and pollution, and also employment. These complex problems, we will never be able to solve them alone. We need all stakeholders together. In order to do this, we can't work in silos. We can't work independently. We all need each other, whether it's private sector, public sector, and government. The people that will enable this are the bridge builders themselves, are the people that are willing to collaborate, are willing to open their doors and work together without saying that this is only mine and this is something that I will solve on my own. Finally, I want to direct a message to all the people that are here, to all the Arab countries and all the beneficiaries, that from UAE to Palestine to Morocco, we need to be together. In order to solve this problem, no one country can solve it together. Finally, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karim, for your inspiring words and encouragement. And right now, after hearing that, and giving us really important food for thought and ideas for concrete action, I'm going to introduce the panelists and invite them to come to the stage with me. First, General Ismail El-Far, if you could come, the Deputy Minister, Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of Egypt, and take your seat on the stage. Ms. Basma, for the member of the Youth Advisory Group, if you could come to the stage, please. Mr. Jurjen Middelhoff, the Dutch Ambassador for Youth, Education and Work, the Government of the Netherlands. Ms. Kauthar from the Sheba Youth Foundation, if you could join me on the stage, please. Fahad Malik, the Head of Partnerships at Silatech. Thanks so much. Finally, Mohammed Al-Hakim, the founding partner of EQIQ at the end. Thanks so much. So great. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this discussion. And like we said, we want to make it interactive. So if you can keep your questions and comments, that would be great when we have time now. So we wanted this session that we have before us to be really symbolic of the different kind of stakeholders, the different kind of players that need to work together to really make a difference in this space of learning to earning, and working together to implement policies, drive innovation, and meaningful outcomes for young people. So here we are, a representative from government, from business, from private foundations, and young people. So my first question that I have for each of you is, if you could, considering the regional context, we heard so much about it yesterday, and the global challenges, which I kind of went through quickly this morning, but we know very much before us. Could you please share with us your perspective, based on your own experiences, of the role of different actors in this kind of partnership ecosystem to advance the agenda that we're all here today in Tunis for? Why also, and what kind of partnership is required to overcome the kind of challenges that we have before us, but also to seize on the opportunities towards empowering young people with skills and with opportunities? So I will start first with General Ismail El-Fir, if you would like to begin. And there's a microphone there, if I can help you. And is it on? Please go ahead now.
السلام عليكم، صباح الخير عليكم جميعا. أنا سعيد جدا أن متواجد في هذا المحفل الدولي العظيم في بلدنا الثاني تونس الخضراء، وسعيد جدا بالدول العربية المشتركة في هذا البرنامج. لو اتكلمنا على جمهورية مصر العربية أو الحكومة المصرية في الشراكة وفي الشباب، هنلاقي احنا بنستهدف أعداد بالملايين. يعني احنا بدأنا في عندنا مشروع أو مبادرة، بدأنا بمبادرة في مصر جينيو أكاديمي، المستهدف عندنا 13 مليون، وصلنا ل 3 مليون دلوقتي. احنا إجمالي سن الشباب في مصر عامة بيتعدى 67 مليون. فالشراكات مع المنظمات الدولية والمنظمات الأهلية داخل مصر والدول العربية منتشرة وكتيرة. لو اتكلمنا على الثغرة الأولانية أو مش الثغرة أو الشراكة الأولانية مع اليونيسيف وبقية المنظمات، الخمس منظمات اللي متواجدة معانا، هنلاقي مثلا في اليونيسيف عاملين مبادرة شباب بدلت. الحكومة بتقدم عندنا لإنجاح هذه المبادرات والشراكة للشباب للتعلم والتعليم والعمل. عندنا على مستوى الجمهورية في عندنا 5000 مركز شباب، عندنا 20 مدينة شبابية رياضية بالفنادق بتاعتها. الحكومة بتقدم جميع المعطيات أو جميع الحاجات اللي بتملكها للشباب، وبالتالي في تشارك مع الدول العربية في كذا محفل دولي وكذا مبادرة موجودة في مصر. الإمكانيات بتاعت الحكومة كلها وبالذات مع اليونيسيف، احنا مسخرين على مستوى الجمهورية 5000 مركز وال20 مدينة شبابية ورياضية بالفنادق بتاعتهم. المنادق والمراكز الشباب بتلاقي حضرتك فيها من إقامة فنادق، بتلاقي فيه ملاعب، فيه قاعات لورش العمل. كل ده احنا بنتيحه للشباب المصري والعربي في أي محفل يكونوا موجودين فيه عندنا. لو احنا عايزين بقى يعني نطلع بعد التدريب ده الشباب من احنا بنستهدف من اول 10 سنين حتى 24 سنه. لو عايزين نطلع الشباب ده والطلايع وجميع المراحل السنيه للعمل، بنبدا باول حاجه تسخير كل ما هو داخل الحكومه في العمل من اجل الشباب المصري والعربي. لو عايزين بقى نكبر يعني الحل بتاعه الوحيد عشان خاطر ان الشباب كلها قاعدين بياخدوا تدريب، بياخدوا دورات على اعلى مستوى. بنعمل في المبادره الواحده بيتعدى ال 5000 شاب او طليع. لو احنا عايزين بقى نخرج من مرحله التدريب الى العمل، مطلوب ان احنا نتكاتف كلنا مع بعض. وندي مثال صغير كده، لو جبنا مثلا 500 شاب وطليع ودربناهم على مهن زي ما عملنا احنا برضو، زي ما هي ذكرت الاستاذه رومي عشان ما غلطش في الاسم بس، في موضوع الاطفال تدريب في اونلاين. احنا بنسمح دلوقتي للاطفال بنعمل كل يوم دورات بتتعدى 3 أسابيع، بياخد تدريبات على الاونلاين موجود داخل مصر. بنتيح ان يبقى في حاجات اوف لاين في المدن الشبابيه والرياضيه اللي فيها اقامه، ومراكز الشباب اللي بتستوعب على ال 5000 مركز منتشرين داخل مصر على 27 محافظه داخل جمهوريه مصر العربيه. لو احنا بقى عايزين نخلي بقى يبقى في تفاعل وحل فعلي للعمل بقى، ونبدا يعني نشتغل بقوه في هذا الموضوع، لازم الاستثمار، لازم شركات القطاع الخاص تخش معانا. اتحاد المنظمات الدوليه والحكومات، احنا حكوماتنا زي مصر وبقيه الحكومات العربيه لما تتضافر مع المنظمات الأممية والمنظمات الأهلية ويخش قطاع الاستثمار، هيبقى في على ما أعتقد يعني بالنظرة من غير ما نفكر في أي حاجة، هيبقى في إنتاج كويس إن الشاب يطلع يلاقي بعد التدريب يلاقي العمل بتاعه. شكرا.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, General Ismailov, for very, very thoughtful words. In fact, I'm on my way to Cairo, as you know, on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to seeing how much what you've described, which is basically the Shabab Balad partnership of government, of the UN, and private sector to take things forward. So thanks very much for that. Thank you. So now I move to Ms. Basma, if you could provide your unique perspective on this question, sorry.
First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. And answering to your question, as a young Yemeni girl, actually, I see the roles of different sectors are essential and crucial. I mean, government must delegate or coordinate and calibrate with young people to provide policies, regulations, and build the infrastructure of the educations. Besides that, private sectors also can offer internships and apprenticeships, workshop training sessions to those young to develop their skills. Moreover, the civil society can make awarenesses about the importance of these engagements, and also not to forget the youth, because youth play a vital role in everything, in every process. They should be included in the implementation, in the monitoring, in the process, and providing actionable feedback for these what we'll be doing. Actually, it is honored to be a young person in these esteemed panelists, because in here I can show that you understand the meaningful engagement of young. And if there's one thing I know for certain, that young people should be treated as partners, not as beneficiaries, because it is what we will be doing for the youth themselves. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Basma. And I really liked I think you complimented what the general said in saying that we need to coordinate complement and triangulate with young people. And it's really about youth-powered impact, working not just for youth, but with youth. And I know with your background in human resources in particular, you have also a lot of experience to bring in this whole area of learning to earning. So yes, now I pass on to you, Ambassador Urian, for your unique perspective.
My unique perspective. Okay, great. I'll do my best. Good morning, everyone. Public-private youth partnerships, they are crucial. I'm convinced of that. And every partner has their own role to play in it. And we need all of them. First of all, we need governments, all of the governments, also the ones present here today, to take youth serious. They are the biggest assets of your countries. We're very jealous of the youth bulge that you all have. So please treat them as equal partners indeed and see them as the most important stakeholders and involve them in the policy making in a meaningful way. Listen to them, ask from the very beginning of policies, during the process to the evaluation phase, treat them as partners and take their ideas serious because the policy outcome will be much better. That is the role for governments, I'd say, creating an enabling environment so that youth interventions can really arrive to the surface. And we are doing that as the Netherlands as well. We're trying different ways together with young people to see what works, to tackle the problems and challenges that they are faced with. And some work and some don't. And as I mentioned yesterday, we're happy to share those experiences. But this is only one part. Then we need the private sector from here on. I know there's a few companies present here in the audience today. We need you. Why? To scale up our efforts. We cannot do it alone, and the challenge is vast. So now, and we know what works and what doesn't work when working with youth and for youth. So now we need you to scale up our efforts. And this is where the partnerships come in. And of course, the NGOs and the knowledge institutes, your knowledge, the data you possess, your experience in different approaches are crucial to really make our engagements effective. So we need all of them, but there's one red line in working together, and that is listening to young people and involving young people throughout the entire process. Now, we are doing that, for example, in the MENA region, in the Prospects partnership that I have to mention here, a partnership together with UNICEF, UNHCR, the World Bank, IFC, and the ILO, where in many of the countries present here today, we are investing in young people and their host communities in ways that the young people are actually asking us to do. So we're investing in skills, we are investing in jobs for young people and their host communities, but only in ways that they actually deem necessary. And for me, that is the perfect example of a proper partnership, every partner bringing their best experience and expertise to the table, and together the sum is much greater than our individual efforts.
Well, thanks so much, Ambassador Urian. And I like what you had to say about the need for us to take youth serious and that you're jealous of the demographic bulge. And I haven't seen it put that way before. And also the important point about bringing together basically what might be considered a coalition of unusual suspects of private sector, with government, with youth, which is really, really important to take progress. It's been great to be together with the ambassador in forums like the recent Global Initiative on Decent Jobs for Youth conference in Kigali in Uganda. He's a strong advocate for these issues, and great that you could participate here as well. So now I move on to Ms. Kauthar. If you could please also answer the same question would be great. Thank you so much. And I've got to compliment all of you, each of you, for keeping to time. I haven't even had to mention that, so thanks so much. Please go ahead.
أولاً السلام عليكم. سعيدة جداً بتواجدي هنا ومرحباً بالجميع. في البداية أحب أن أقول أن الشباب هم الشريحة المهمة في كل المجتمعات، وفي اليمن تعتبر شريحة الشباب تمثل بنسبة 70%. وأعتقد أن الفرص التي لابد أن تتاح للشباب هي من أهم الفرص، سواء من قبل القطاع الحكومي، القطاع الخاص، وأيضا منظمات المجتمع المدني. كثير من الشباب يعانون من الوصول إلى الفرص، رغم أن هناك فرص لكن تعتبر ضئيلة نوعا ما. الشيء الآخر، هناك الكثير من الفرص التي لا بد أن تقدمها الحكومات وأيضا القطاع الخاص بالتعاون والتنسيق فيما بينهم. كوني عضوة في مؤسسة شباب سبا، وهي مؤسسة مجتمع مدني تعمل في تمكين وتعزيز مهارات الشباب، تستطيع منظمات المجتمع المدني أن تقوم بمهمة التواصل والتنسيق، وأن تكون هي المنصة والصوت الأول للشباب. نستطيع مثلا أن نعرف ما هي التجارب والدروس المستفادة من الفرص في تمكين الشباب. أيضا من خلال المشاريع والبرامج التي تم تنفيذها فيما يتعلق في تمكين وتعزيز الشباب، مثل حاضنات الأعمال، مراكز التعليم الفني والمهني، أيضا إلى جانب تعزيز مهاراتهم الريادية وتعزيز فرصهم للانتقال من فرص التعلم إلى العمل.
Thanks so much. And it was great also, Ms. Basman, to hear this really important perspective of you listening to young people as a sounding board for the kind of projects that we implement. So young people are not just about voice and representation. They're not just about being represented at different levels of government or an organization, but they also are co-creators in developing projects that benefit young people. And I think that's a really, really important point and perspective to bring in. Now I move to Fahad Malik. If you could speak. Also, I know lots of great work from Silitech already in this space and from your perspective.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about, let's say, first of all, the governments, the policies. I mean, seriously, the governments can facilitate our job and make it much easier when they just change a lot of policies or give the support or the right support for our organization or other NGOs which have like a niche fact or a niche job. Education institution, school training, they have to match it with the real market. I mean, the institution today, they're giving, I mean, old-fashioned trainings, which not really matching with the new jobs. Private sector, yes, scholarships, support for the young people, let's say summer courses. They can do a lot, and they can help a lot to support young people. For sure, the international organization, UN organization, we in Silitech, we work more with the UN agencies. I mean, mostly all of our projects, we do support from them. Multi-stakeholder. I mean, we have a very good example in Egypt, working with the GNU, with the government. So I see here, if we all work together, that's we're gonna make a good of change, a big change for the youth.
Thanks so much, Mr. Fahad. And just to say that I think my first meeting with Silitech, I think, was just on the margins of the last Amman high-level meeting in Jordan, and it's just been good to see a very important supporter of programs in the learning to earning space, and really great to see and excited to see such programs roll out in the region that will support young people with skills and opportunities. And finally, to bring in that private sector perspective that we've been talking about and so important to make a difference in this space, I pass on to Mr. Mohammed Al-Hakim from EQIQ, if you could please give your perspective on this question.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I echo the ambassador's comment. I don't know if I have a unique perspective, but I have a different one. I think a solution to this ever-growing problem in the Middle East, you have the core and then you have complementary solutions. And I think all programs that are additional are complementary, but the core, the foundation is education. And education, as people say, is the big equalizer. This is how you bring the youth into the job market, This is how you create opportunities. This is how you bridge the skills gap. And because most educational institutions in the Middle East are public institutions, I think this is where the private-public partnership comes in. For big corporates, for the public institutions, the universities, to do partnerships, to form partnerships together, and target the youth from a very early age. And I draw on an experience from Scandinavia, for example, where they start as early as year 4, grade 4, where people are 10 years old, they're required to go out in the job market and to do an internship. It's an unpaid internship, but you get to learn several skills. You learn what commitment is, you get into the job market, you know what skills that you need when you go into the job market. So anything that doesn't address the issues that we have in the educational system today in the Middle East is complementary, in my opinion. And we need to fix the core, which is the education, and this is where the public-private partnership comes in to play.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just to say that I think that international evidence has shown how important education from early learning will improve your employment outcomes, but it's not only education itself, but what is the kind of education that's being delivered and what is the kind of private sector input into that so that we have that public-private youth partnership and training and skills, which is really important. Thanks so much. And when I move to the next question, it'll be good to hear from you and others too about your specific experiences and ideas and ingredients for success to have this kind of partnership. So my next question to the esteemed panelists is drawing on these on your own experience, and some of you have already started to, like the general, speak about that in Egypt, but also, you know, examples of innovative and impactful results-driven partnership, maybe key ingredients of success. So you've talked a little bit about the experience, but also what have been the key ingredients for success in taking those forward. So I'm gonna follow the same order in the panel, and if you can, like you did so well in the first round, you all kept to 2 minutes. If you could do the same, and if I could start again with the general, please.
والله المناقشة معاك جميلة جدا، انت بتخلي السؤال في 10 مش واحد بس احنا هنقدر نرد على كل اللي حضرتك عايزاه. اول حاجة طبعا الآراء اللي سمعناها من سيادة السفير ومن البلدان العربية الشقيقة دي كويس ان احنا بالتالي زي ما قال الأخ فهد في قطر احنا على شراكة على طول وفي استمرار في التعلم، ولكن احنا بنطلب من القطاع الخاص والاستثمارات تخش مع الحكومة، عشان أنا لو رجعت بالكلام اللي عاملينه في جمهورية مصر العربية على مستوى 27 محافظة والمستهدف اللي كنا عاملينه، بدأنا بشباب بلد وبدأنا بجينيو أكاديمي، كان بالتالي توقعنا مبادرة في 22 حققنا منها لغاية دلوقتي 3 مليون. المركز اللي هيتعمل في القاهرة اللي خاص بجينيو أكاديمي ده هينتشر في المحافظات كلها. العمل داخل جمهورية مصر العربية من الحكومة بيقسم مصر ل4 قطاعات في العمل، ودي سياسة الوزارة برئاسة الدكتور أشرف صبحي وزير الشباب والرياضة. إن إحنا عندنا الصعيد، عندنا القاهرة الكبرى، عندنا الدلتا اللي هي المحافظات الريفية، وعندنا القناة وسيناء. احنا هنبدأ بالمركز ان شاء الله هيبقى في القاهرة الكبرى، وبعد كده هنخش على الصعيد في المركز الخاص بالجيوني أكاديمي وبقية المبادرات. القطاع الخاص احنا بنقول له ان الحكومة عندنا في مصر واحنا عملنا كذا حاجة معاهم برضو وتشاركوا معانا في كذا حاجة، وفي بعض الدول العربية تشاركت معانا في أعمال وتدريبات خاصة بالشباب، وإن شاء الله هننتقل ل يعني بفضل الشراكة مع الدول العربية والقطاع الخاص للعمل الشباب. احنا كمان بنعمل حاجة ان الشباب بنجيبهم يقعدوا على رأس الترابيزة مع السيد الوزير ومع الحكومة شخصيا، يقولوا أفكارهم اللي احنا بننفذها. احنا منفذين لغاية دلوقتي 74 فكرة من الشباب. على سبيل المثال لو اتكلمنا في التدريب مع المنظمات الأجنبية، واتكلمنا على الفكره العظيمه اللي عملها وزير الشباب والرياضه، اللي هي الكيانات الشبابيه من كل المحافظه. انتوا عارفين تعداد مصر معدي ال 110 مليون، نسبه الشباب معديه ال 67 مليون. عندنا المستهدف في العمل مع منظمات واليونيسيف من 10 سنين حتى 24 سنه، سواء كان في الرياضه او في العمل العام. هندي مثال صغير كده عملناه في ورق البردي، ده برضو مع احدى المنظمات، منظمه العمل وانديه السكان وكده. جبنا 300 شاب كده او 300 طفل كده من 15 سنه في القريه. احنا عندنا في مصر في قريتين دول اقدم قريتين بينتجوا ورق البردي، واحده في محافظه الشرقيه نزله العرين، وواحده في الدقهليه. جبنا الشباب دول وصرفنا عليهم من بعد ما خدوا التدريبات الكافيه، وبدانا نعلمهم ازاي. برضو احنا ما بنعلمش الاطفال السن 15 سنه عشان ما نخشش في حته ان احنا عماله الطفل واللي بنسمع عليه من كلمات المنظمات الحقوقيه. لا، جبناهم وعلمناهم عمل بسيط جدا، زي الطفل لما بتحطه كده في غرفه عشان يبدا يرسم ويبدا يعمل اي حاجه هوايه عنده. والحمد لله ال 300 دلوقتي كرياده اعمال وكتمكين ليهم، ال 300 دلوقتي بيجيبوا ورق الوردي وبيعملوه وبيبيعوه وبيكسبوا، وليهم بيج على حتى الصناعات اللي هي من الخياميه والخرز والحاجات دي والسبح والحاجات البسيطه دي. احنا عايزين ننتقل ان شاء الله للحاجات اللي اكبر. يعني احنا في حاجه عملناها مع منظمه العمل في وسط محافظات مصر في تدريب العيال للانتقال للمهن الحره. الشباب اللي معدل 20 سنه، اللي هو خرج كليه او دبلوم او تعليم متوسط او لسه بيدرس في الكليه مهن حرفيه، بالتالي برضو كان عدد لا باس به، مش متذكر العدد. واحنا كحكومه مصريه بنحط ايدينا في ايدين المنظمات الجاده، لان الخمس منظمات اللي ورانا اللي هم متواجدين معانا حقيقي بيعملوا حاجات بتطلع انتاج في التدريب والعمل للشباب المصري ان شاء الله والشباب العربي حقيقه على ارض الواقع، وحقق انتصار، يعني حقق انتصارات كتيره في هذا العمل. واحنا بنشد على يد المنظمات وبنقول للقطاع الاستثمار والقطاع الخاص تعالى معانا عشان نكمل. يعني المؤسسه النهارده المركز اللي هيتعمل في القاهره بتاع جينيو اكاديمي ده مبنى مكلف قد كده، في مدربين على اعلى مستوى. بعد كده هينتقل الى الصعيد، المناطق اللي عندنا بعيده شويه عن القاهره. فالقطاع الخاص لما يجي هينشر لي هذا الموضوع في ال 27 محافظه، وان شاء الله ينتشر في الوطن العربي بالكامل. شكرا وانا اسف على الاطاله.
Yeah, thanks so much, General. Very important points around learning, the importance of learning by doing, and that the importance of public-private collaboration in education, as it came up in the earlier round. Thanks so much for those ideas and insights. So I move to Ms. Basma, please, go ahead.
So answering to the question, I think there should be like so many partnerships with them. Before giving you an examples, I would like to emphasize again the importance and the critical importance of the partnerships, because it will require three things actually. The comprehensive sustainability, because if only one sector is working, the sustainability will be few, like there will be like fixed stitches and it will goes away and faded. But if all sectors all together, partnerships, it will make the sustainability for the long term. And that's what we want exactly. Actually, the example for that, there is an education for employment that they are all together and they emphasize youth people to hear their voice and to act according to their voices and according to their views. Actually, me as an HR, I've been working as an initiative thing with other HR colleagues from other INGOs organizations. And we have been working and going to the universities, asking students what do they want, and we tell them what the market needs. So we try to bridge the gap between their skills, enable them, And we're trying to find them opportunities. But to find the opportunities, we're also telling them what are the skills needed for them to have. But there must be programs, there must be like sectors to facilitate these programs, to fully fund them, and to make it accessible for everyone, like to everyone. And these things will be done if we all together burden and make this happen actually. Because whenever we go, we will tell them like how to write their CVs. It's like starting from how to write their CV, developing the skills, and how to be engaging to the transition to the decent work, and how to sustainable, and also educate the other young people to be as a role model for them. So it's like peer-to-peer education and all together to achieve this kind of partnership. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks so much, Ms. Basman. Really, really important points about the need to bridge what young people aspire to, because young people have their dreams, and match that with what employers or businesses need and what's out there in the labor market. So we need to learn from you, all of us on the panel, and all the governments and private sector in the region, and hope, because of your specific experience and background also in HR, I think you have a lot to contribute in terms of advancing the learning to earning agenda. So over to you, Ambassador Yurian.
Right. First, a few examples and then some key lessons. One of the examples that I would like to highlight here on a successful partnership and what's required is actually from Egypt. In Egypt, we invest a lot in young persons. We work a lot with them. We invest in youth employment, young entrepreneurship, and the education that's required. And a lot is happening, as the General was rightfully saying. So what we did as the Netherlands was we identified a certain region where traditionally we are strong in, for example, because of the presence of our private sector, but also where there are many challenges. And we've selected the region of Upper Egypt, which is an agricultural region. It's a little bit underprivileged, I would say, in the sense that there's not so many programs running there. But we do have Dutch companies present there in the agricultural sector and the water management sector. And what we did is working with them to identify, and youth obviously, to identify which gaps are there and what is necessary to link more young persons from this region to the companies that there are who are in searching for talented, skilled young persons. And what can we do as Dutch government to make that connection? One of the things we did was create an Orange Corners Hub. That's a startup incubator for agricultural entrepreneurs. And that is running there quite successfully because, well, partly because it's the only one there. There's many in Cairo, but not so many in Upper Egypt. And secondly, because there is a direct connection to the private sector that's active there as well. So this shows you how every partner has their own things to bring to the table. And another interesting partnership is, I think, Upshift. Upshift is a partnership with UNICEF, GenU, as well as the ILO. And yeah, it basically combines the expertise of UNICEF and the ILO immaculately. So UNICEF brings the Upshift curriculum to the table. And the ILO has a curriculum on business development, and together we can really make a difference for young persons, for example, in Uganda, that are on the move, that have a refugee background, for example, and are very underprivileged or marginalized even. And through this cooperation, we can really make a difference for young people. For example, in the hotel where we actually met, there was a receptionist working who had come from another country. He had to flee, but thanks to this program and the Prospects partnership, he was able to receive a training to achieve a skill that was in demand, namely hospitality management, and receive a position with a decent position, all thanks to this partnership and the different partners bringing different expertises to the table. So all in all, some key ingredients for the impact of partnerships. First of all, recognize each other's strengths. I think that's very important, and also trust each other. Trust on the strengths of the other. And I think it's really crucial, put youth central in these partnerships, trust them, and partner with them to reach the most impact.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excellent, Ambassador Yurian. And just the agripreneurship and the Orange Corners Hub sounds super interesting. I'm familiar with that work. As well as in Uganda, the program I actually had the privilege to see in person, a collaboration between ILO, UNICEF, under Prospects and the youth-led social entrepreneurship. And in fact, with innovations in the green space in northern Uganda, and digital. So really great examples there. Ms. Kauter, so over to you for your ideas.
في البداية أنا أحب أن أقول أنه أتفق مع كل الأفكار والكلام الذي طرح. في الحقيقة هو كلام مهم جدا. أحب أن أضيف إلى ذلك أن القطاع الحكومي له الدور الكبير والفعال في تعزيز أو إيجاد البيئة المناسبة للقطاع الخاص ومؤسسات المجتمع المدني التي تعملان يعني بجانب بعض في تعزيز وتمكين مهارات الشباب للانتقال إلى العمل اللائق. في بعض سأعطيكم مثال. هناك مشروع تم تنفيذه في المؤسسة. هذا المشروع عبارة يعني نحن هدفنا في مؤسسة شباب سبا في تعزيز وتمكين الشباب. هذا المشروع تم تنفيذ برنامج حاضنة أعمال بلدت أب، وكان أول مشروع في مدينة تعز. هذا المشروع استهدف مجموعة من الشباب، تم تعزيز مهاراتهم وتدريبهم فيما يتعلق في ريادة الأعمال والكثير من المهارات التي لها علاقة في ريادة الأعمال وانتقالهم إلى العمل من فرص التعلم. الآن هؤلاء الشباب أصبحوا قادرين على إدارة مشاريعهم بكفاءة، أصبح لهم بصمة إيجابية في المجتمع، وهؤلاء أيضا الآن ينقلون الخبرات والمعرفة إلى شباب آخرين. أيضا أريد أن أتحدث عن تجربتي الخاصة. أنا في 2023 تخرجت من الجامعة والتحقت في برنامج زمالة مهنية. لم يكن لدي أي معرفة في المجال المهني أو المجال المؤسساتي. هذه الفرصة أكسبتني أن أتعلم ويكون عندي خلفية ومهارات في المجال المهني، وأنا اليوم في هذا الحدث، وهذا يعتبر نموذج لدعم وتعزيز وتمكين مهارات الشباب وانتقالهم من فرص التعلم إلى العمل. في الأخير أحب أن أقول أن القطاع الخاص والحكومات وأيضا مؤسسة المجتمع المدني، ولا ننسى الشباب وهم العنصر المهم والفعال في أن يتم في إنشاء وتصميم برامج ومشاريع فيما يتعلق في ريادة الأعمال، فيما يتعلق في مهارات البرامج الفنية والمهنية، وأيضا المهارات القابلة للنقل، وأيضا التي ممكن نقول حديثة وتتوازى مع تطور المجتمع. أحب أن أقدم للجميع أنه يجب أن تؤمنوا في الشباب.
Thanks so much, and just really important perspectives too, from being able to advance learning to earning opportunities in formal and informal settings, because it's not possible that you will have just formal jobs there and in certain professional occupations. So I think it's really, how do we look in the most challenging contexts, which we also have globally and in this region, to advance these with and for young people. So over to you, Fahad.
Actually, we can say when we get the right support from the governments, we actually get successful. As I said, when we get the right support from governments, our projects get successful and scale up. As our example in Egypt, our project aiming to get more than 1 million jobs for youth. As you mentioned before earlier in Brazil, we scale up. It's actually started as a 50,000. It's scaled up until, or actually to get above 1 million. In Yemen as well, we started like 40,000. We reached up to 100,000. So when we find the right collaboration from government, private, UN agencies, we actually get our target, and we can actually that facilitate our job, and it's make it much easier, so we can reach more and scale up more numbers of jobs for youth.
Yeah, Yeah, thanks so much. And I think really important points of Silitech to make, that a lot of support in the region for such programs and also beyond, in mentioning Brazil. And I think really, really important support, one of the kind of pioneering supporters in this learning to earning space. So thanks so much. So finally, over to Mr. Mohammed, if you can answer the question, and then hopefully we have a little bit of time for a Q&A after.
Sure. So first of all, companies in the private sector in the Middle East always complain that there is not enough talent. And governments complain that there is an excess of talent. And this kind of gap inequality can be bridged by starting early. To use some examples, I'm going to use 3 examples, 2 personal and 1 professional example. I grew up in Scandinavia, and just reiterating what I said about the Scandinavian experience earlier, at 4th grade, we had to find work, an internship for 2 weeks, unpaid internship. I started working with a supermarket. I was polishing fruit and vegetables, removing dust, not getting paid, long hours. It was cold, not great, not a great experience, but I learned a lot of soft skills. Some of them I still carry with me today. And then another personal experience at university, where I studied in the UK, already from year 1, in the first month, the companies start attacking the students, promoting themselves and promoting their internship programs. And then there are internship programs starting from the first year, and then the second year, and then the penultimate year. And if you do a penultimate year internship with a corporate, there's a high probability of getting an offer to come back and work with them. So again, I reiterate the fact that starting early and making these initiatives embedded into the educational system is key, and it's the core to sustainable improvement in this sector. The third experience is what we're doing in Iraq, and as a venture builder and a venture capital fund, we build businesses in Iraq. One of the businesses that we invested in, that we built, is a social commerce platform that enables entrepreneurs to trade online, to start their own businesses. Entrepreneurship is an alternative route to employment, self-employment, because not only do you employ yourself, but you employ a lot of other people with you. So we're working with the Ministry of Youth today to enable youth at universities to start their own businesses by providing the products, i.e. the assortment, logistics, such as warehousing, delivery, cash collection, and cash transfers to them. So far, we've created 13,000 opportunities. We've handed out or delivered more than $2 million in profits to 13,000 youth. The average age is 18 and 19 years of those new budding entrepreneurs. And this is an example that we're looking to scale with the Ministry of Youth in Iraq.
Great examples. When you were mentioning about the polishing fruit, I born in Canada, grew up there. My first job was, I think I was 12 or 13, and I had a newspaper route. And if you know the Canadian winters, there's lots of snow, it wasn't nice. I suppose there might have been some value in that, but I think the point is really well taken, that you have soft skills even from these jobs early on, and then if we could have it more organized, you know, with the private sector, with internship, cooperative placement, employment, entrepreneurship, starting your business as you are entrepreneur yourself, and have those opportunities early on, I think it makes such a big difference in terms of advancing, and great to hear about those experiences in Iraq and beyond. So I'm gonna have to ask the organizers, we had a certain allocated time to ask, to see if you know, colleagues, so those in the audience had questions. I'd say we have maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and I see a thumbs up over on the left side that that's okay. To have about 5-10 minutes for questions. And what I'm going to suggest, here we have Noor and Fatima, who are also helping. I don't see them right. Okay, there they are from our amazing youth advisory group that are helping us moderate this session. And when you ask your question, if you could just introduce yourself briefly, your name, organization, and the key question. I think what I'll do is collect a few, and then we'll take one round. Maybe that should be fine for the Q&A. And then we have a very important also closing remarks by our co-organizer UNDP at the end, if that sounds okay. So if you could raise your hands. I saw one already up. You were very eager, so I saw you. And any others? There's another. So one on my right side, two. The gentleman over there in the fourth row. Any others? Maybe I'll just take two more. I'm just checking if there's any others. There's two questions. And then if you feel, just let Noor over there. And there's a third one in the back. Yes. And so we'll take those three. If any fourth, just please let Noor and Fatima know. And then we'll have that in the round, the first round.
Hi, good morning. I'm Wafé from UNFPA Tunisia. Thank you for this very enriching panel. And my question is not only for Silatech, but also for every other private sector representative here with us today. Because we keep talking about the social responsibility of the private sector, and that some private sector and enterprises are interested in investing in PPP because of the philanthropy and the being of goodwill. However, what, in terms of benefit and business benefit, did PPP bring to you? And are there any tangible results, like for instance, in terms of benefit return on investment? And how can we, as non-profit actors, package what we do best, especially investing in skills, building partnership? How can we package that so it is attractive really for you and it is a win-win situation, not just for us, for young people, but also for the profit making, because you're growing and the private sector growth makes sure that there are more earning opportunities for young people. Thank you.
Great question. Great question. So we'll hear the second. I think your hand was over there, up there on the right side. And just your name and organization, please, before you start your question.
Thank you. Bonjour, Hedji Neji de PNU Tunisie. En fait, j'ai deux questions. La première, c'est que, entre autres, vous avez parlé des assises pour favoriser l'accès, on va dire, des jeunes à des emplois, notamment à travers les formations, les stages professionnels, ainsi que des initiations dès l'âge enfant. Et sachant que le thème du HLM, c'est l'accès des jeunes à des emplois décents, connaissant aussi, entre autres, le poids de l'informel, ma question, c'est comment les partenariats peuvent renforcer les opportunités d'accès à des emplois décents au-delà d'un simple emploi. La deuxième question, c'est comment les partenariats peuvent contribuer à des opportunités de qualité beaucoup plus que des opportunités de masse, de sorte à favoriser un peu l'essor de l'économie de savoir. Merci.
Great, thanks so much. Great question too. And the third, I think it was over. Yes, please go ahead. And then I think there might have been one more. Please go
الدكتور
ahead.
أحمد خضر مدير مركز التمكين والريادة الطلابي في جامعة دمشق سوريا. شكرا لإتاحة الفرصة إلي رح يكون على جزئين. الجزء الأول هو تجربة بسيطة في سوريا يليها سؤال. التجربة هي مركز التمكين والريادة الطلابي، هو مركز يدار من 3 جهات تشاركية اللي هي عبارة عن قطاع حكومي اللي هي جامعة دمشق، ممثل عن المجتمع المدني والأهلي هي جمعية ومؤسسة تنموية، يضاف إليها شريحة الشبابية اللي موجودة أيضا في إدارة المركز ممثل عن الاتحاد الوطني لطلبة سوريا. إذن هو مثال عن تشاركية ما بين قطاعات 3 للقيام بعملية تمكين الشباب. والمركز يتيح 3 خدمات أساسية. الخدمة الأولى هي التوجيه المهني والأكاديمي، الجانب الآخر هو التدريب والتأهيل، ومبادرة أطلقت منذ فترة قصيرة اللي هي التدريب المنتهي بالتوظيف. الفكرة الأساسية التي ينطلق منها المركز أن يكون الشباب هو من يحدد المطالب الأساسية لهم، لذلك كان في مبادرة أولى للبرامج التدريبية أن تكون الشريحة الشابة هي من تقوم بعملية اختيار البرامج التدريبية التي تتلائم مع احتياجاتها الحقيقية. السؤال للجميع: إلى أي مدى يمكن اعتماد منظومة تربط بشكل مباشر التدريب بعملية التوظيف اللائق. شكرا.
Great question there too, also from our colleague from Syria. So I just wanted to check, was there any, oh, there's one more, then we'll take, and that'll be the finish now. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Ziad Jouelis, the Minister or President of the National Tibet Commission in Palestine. As the title of this session is regarding the partnerships, I was just wondering, and the question is general, is there going to be any difference in the terminology of the UN agencies and others between PPP, Public-Private Partnership, and PPYP, Public-Private Youth Partnership? Just to see if there is any. Thank you.
Great question to end on. Okay, so I turn over, let me just come over, or actually, if it's all right, I'll stay here because I could read my notes. So who'd like, the first question was around the return on investment and the role of private sector. Now, there was a specific call out on Silatech, although our colleague was interested to hear other perspectives. So did you want to start, Mr. Fahad? But does anyone else want to tackle that question as well? But maybe we hear from Fahad then, and then anyone else who'd like to go. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually when we start working on supporting MFIs to actually can reach out for more youth and support more youth to start their own businesses or things, we actually get involved in the ecosystem. So you get more cash flow, more job. Even for the entrepreneur, they actually create their own jobs. And later on, when they get success businesses or things, they actually create more job for others to join them. So getting involved in this whole ecosystem, it will increase the financial and the economic support for the country itself. So I can see this is the interference we do in this kind of projects.
Thanks so much, Mr. Fahad.
I would just point out on return that when we talk about these kind of programs, if they're structured as charity or CSR, then we're only talking about a small percentage of corporates that look at charity and CSR. And those are the biggest corporates, and probably only the public companies, because then they're obliged to have these programs, and a lot of time it's PR. One point that was mentioned yesterday in the panel was that 90% of the economy is made up of small and medium-sized enterprises. And these companies cannot afford to do charity and CSR and PR like the big corporates do. But they employ almost 50% of the population. So when we talk about return on investment, it has to be within the core of those businesses. So we're talking about, hiring people. You need to hire people as a company, so you cannot function if you cannot hire people. You're not hiring someone just because you're being nice or charitable to that person. You need skilled people to succeed as a business. You need skilled people to compete. And if you cannot compete on salaries, if you're a small and medium-sized enterprise, or if you're an entrepreneur that has a startup, then you hire younger people and you train them up. So you want someone who's motivated, doesn't necessarily have all the skills required, but that's how you compete with the big players. So the return is embedded in the day-to-day in the business. And the last point that I would like to make is that, when it comes to these programs, we have to make sure that they're not done because of another agenda for corporates other than the day-to-day business. For example, there's been a lot of studies on how diversity increases the returns for businesses, and it improves the course of the business itself. And usually when you're hiring from different areas or different regions, different universities, different social and economic classes. You get a diverse set of employees that will contribute to your culture, that will contribute to the problem solving that you need to have at the company, and that in itself also creates returns. It's very difficult to put numbers on these things, but I think if we don't make it within the core day-to-day business of these businesses, it's very difficult to really say that these programs are generating returns.
So great. I think, and we'll move on to the other questions, but really important points on the importance of making it part of your core business principle. When we're looking at young people, actually source of very important talent. And we also heard that from Ms. Asma too, so it's kind of, I think really, how do you make it, there are organizations like the Global Compact that also work on this to make it part of everyday business and coordination with UN and other agencies to make it part of just a regular everyday practice, so that young people are the assets. So there was another question, and I guess I'll take, it also comes up in a few from our colleagues in Tunisia, Syria, Palestine. There was one question that was particularly around skills training and looking at informal and formal context. So does anyone want to take that on around skills development and opportunities in the informal sector? How do you address? Who would like to? So General, did you want to answer that? And then Ambassador, I think? Yeah. It was around skills and providing quality opportunities.
بالنسبة للحلول عندنا في مصر احنا بنشتغل على 3 محاور. المحور الأولاني ويمكن في حاجة يعني شبيهة من كده عملناها مع دولة قطر الشقيق. احنا بنجيب المستثمر بنقول له تعالى طور او اشتغل معانا في يخش بفلوسك. المستثمر مش هيجي عشان يعمل حاجة ببلاش او يستثمر ببلاش وما ياخدش فلوس او ما يقبليش ليه ارباح زي ما بقول الاخ كريم. ده لازم يقبل ليه ارباح. الارباح بتاعته ازاي؟ النسب بتاعته بنعمل له حدود، الحكومه بتحدد نسب حسب نسبه الشراكه بتاعته. الشراكه بتاعته داخل بكام، هو هيعمل تطوير بكام؟ ب 70%، ب 50%، ب 30%. هيشغل لي كام شاب؟ النسبه اللي هو بيخش بيها الاعلى بتبقى نسبه الارباح ليه الاعلى. وغالبا لما بيجوا يشتغلوا مع الحكومه في الشراكات اللي احنا بنعملها ان احنا بنحط لهم الجانب اللي هو الخدمه المجتمعيه، فما بيبقاش جاي اصلا عشان يبقى خدمته الربح زي ما بيشتغل في شركات الاستثمار الخارجيه. لما بيعمل شراكه مع الحكومه بيشتغل معانا بنسب، ممكن نديله نسب حسب نسبه اللي هيقدمه للمؤسسه الحكوميه. شكرا.
Yeah, about skills, there's a lot that can be said about investing in the skills gap. I think most importantly, we need to, and I think this also became clear from this panel, realize that there is a gap between the skills and competences that young people obtain or have after they have passed through the current existing education systems, and that what is required currently by the market and in the future, for the future jobs that there will be. There's a gap, and we need to invest everything that we have in bridging this gap. And we cannot do it alone as governments, we cannot do it alone as young people, we cannot do it alone as private sector. We need all of us working together to really invest in bridging that gap. And also think outside of the box, because and listen to each other. So private sector is telling us, we're in the middle of developing a new TVET program, investing in TVET, and we want to listen closely to what young people say, but also what private sector is telling us. And private sector and young people actually are telling us, get rid of the traditional 4-year-long curricula at the end of which you have a degree that doesn't benefit me at all. Invest in short-term courses, upskilling, practical competences, life skills, however you want to call it, that at the end of the course I can actually use to do something in the labor market with. And at the same time, we have a tremendous challenge in the MENA region and in Africa in getting more young people involved in the agricultural sector. We know that there will be many jobs available in the agricultural sector. There's actually a big challenge when it comes to food security coming our way, but this is also one of the most conservative and traditional sectors out there, and many young people don't want to work in agriculture. But we know that there will be jobs there, so we have to listen to agripreneurs and agricultural enterprises. We have to speak to trainings institutes in this sector to see what is missing and what can we change to make the sector more attractive. And one of the ways is new ways of learning, and some other ways is helping companies to invest in young employees in training or upskilling to make sure that they are immediately able to do the jobs and meet the requirements that are being asked of them. So yeah, work together, trust each other, and most importantly, listen to young people to come up with the creative solution that we don't know yet.
Really, really, really important points. And I think it answered some of the other questions. Just one left. And I wanted to leave that with our youth, young people on the panel. And one person, the very good question from Palestine, our friend from Palestine there, about what is the difference between, we have PPP, public-private partnership, what is this Y, what does it mean in the PPYP? Does one of you want to answer that before we move to the closing? What does the Y, mean in the public-private youth partnership?
Sorry, before answering this question, I just want to give a small answer. It may summarize all of the questions, like in the beginning, because I've heard about the ROI.
Sure.
Which is of the. So I think you may not see the profit physically in your hand, but it is a strategic investment for you. It's very crucial because you want a skilled young people to be working with you. Instead of outsourcing in this, build these capacities and acquire them with these skills, you will get a profit at the end. At the end, if you are a private sector or a profit sectors, you want profits for sure. You need to build these skills, and we are in the contemporary world where ideas and innovations may come up from these young people. So investment will be, but in the strategic investment, like in the long term. For the difference or why is the YP is included, actually it is because why we are here today. Because when you're involving the young people in the participation, that means there are new ideas and new things that will acquire and will achieve, and how will you benefit those young people. But here you will not be treating young people as beneficiaries only, but as also formulating and monitoring the idea and the things you want to do for them. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks. I think that was a perfect way to kind of end the Q&A session, and just to say, only to add that I think what we're striving for is coming together, mission-aligned partnership, looking at innovations that can work at scale, looking at what is the kind of education and skills young people need to thrive. How do we meet the demands of business, government? How does that ensure their ROI and make it part of their business practice? And then finally, really coming together at the end of the day around joint programming, joint setting of targets and achievements. So I think really, really great points that came out of this Q&A. Now I'm going to move towards the closing, and I'm really happy that UNDP is here as our co-organizer, and to represent UNDP, as I mentioned earlier, Ms. Susanna Dam Hansen, the hub manager for the Regional Bureau of Arab States, is invited to share some closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amila, and thank you to the panelists. Extremely enlightful. Actually, I wanted to do a few reflections on what I heard. That's why I brought my laptop, because I was taking notes while you all spoke. I think if you allow me, I'll just reflect a little bit on what we heard, because it was an extremely interesting and diverse panel, and I think was really enlightening to see how we can play a different role. So I think it's very clear that we all know the enormous need that exists. So to engage with a larger number of youth, and here I want to emphasize engage, because as colleague says, it's a co-creation process. It's really imperative that we expand our partnership and we explore new partnership. I think that's what we heard from the panel today, and we heard a few innovative partnerships and initiatives. Here, I think it's extremely important that we focus on the role and the importance of different partners, from government to private sector, academia, philanthropy, NGOs, with youth at the center, for us to co-create, explore solutions together, while recognizing the different roles of the stakeholders. I think it was very clear when we heard the panel today that we each have a role, no matter what organization we represent, we each have a role. And here I think it's important to look to government for coordinating and setting conducive policies to respond to the needs of the market through an integrated approach and frameworks. And here I'd like to make the link to what we heard the first day in the opening, that there's huge investments made in programs within governments. I mean, we heard from Egypt as well. But there is a really need for enhanced integration of initiatives, and both initiative and investment for greater impact. So I think we look very much to our government partners to seek to have that integrated approach within policies and sectorial ministries, so we actually complement, the initiatives are complementing each other for a greater impact. For academia, and we also heard vocational training center, to have the right curriculum to respond to the labor markets. It's important that we know what are the needs out there, what are the skills we should be giving our young people for them to be attractive employees. For private sector to explore new initiatives and programs and create opportunities for the youth, including internship and experiences early on, that will help to bring soft skills and also be used to working at the labor market. And here I have to say to the panelists, I'm also from Scandinavia. I did strawberries when I was young. So it gives you soft skills, it's true. It gives you an exposure to the labor market, and it gives you some skills that you learn how to interact in the labor market. And it gets you network and contacts. It gives you something that you can lean on. It's not that you've only been to school and then comes a new phase. You learn what is out there. Then I also want to flag the importance of finance. Colleagues also touched on it today from the audience, but also the panel. We need to make finance available for entrepreneurs, for new initiatives and opportunities. An entrepreneur can create jobs for others. So if there is financing opportunities for private sector, for initiatives, it can make employment grow, and we can have new initiatives. So it's something that we really need to make sure, and many governments in the region are really working on integrated finance frameworks and other initiatives that will help to make finance more available. But it is an important thing because there's not enough money for just programs. Then I also want to recognize diversity. I think it's important, so we heard it today, we have a very diverse region. There's an opportunity to share lessons learned and tailor these country contexts and experiences to each other. We have colleagues here from Yemen to the Gulf countries, we heard a lot from Egypt, a lot of good lessons learned. And I think this is important that we listen to these experiences and we see how can we tailor them to our country context and also within country context. It's important to recognize urban and rural. It's important to recognize where frameworks and partners differ. And here it's important to create opportunities for all and leave no one behind. No country is one homogeneous. We are very diverse within countries and beyond countries and within the region. And really have a focus on marginalized groups who might not have the opportunity to have the required learning needed for earning, but how can we engage with them? And here I want to make reference to the example we heard from Egypt, from the importance of intergenerational learning. We heard the example where one of the panelists shared that they were trying to create business opportunities by by learning young people all skills from elderly people in the villages. Intergenerational learning is extremely important. It's part of our culture and it's something that we should foster as well. It's part of job creation and it's part of something you can have between public and private sector. Finally, I want to flag the importance of regional cooperation exchanges, as we have seen here in Tunisia, where we've seen participants representing diverse stakeholders. They share their ideas and perspective in a trusted space, which was also mentioned today. We need to have trust among stakeholders for all of us to share, young people, private sector. We need to create these forums where colleagues can share and come up with their ideas. New ideas will foster opportunities. I think we are all leaving more enriched and inspired by the diverse ideas we have heard here today, this morning. And I hope we, in our various roles within the ecosystem, because it is an ecosystem, can take these ideas forward in support of system change. I hope you will all take these ideas with you and we will all work towards changing the system we are working in and creating a more conducive ecosystem. So with that, I want to thank everyone and I want to thank the panelists. It was extremely interesting. Lumila also for facilitating. Thank you for a good session. It was a pleasure to co-facilitate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Susanna. Excellent and insightful remarks. Thanks so much for helping us close. And excellent and insightful remarks from all the panelists. So we could give another round of applause for them. And to all of you for all your patience and also interest in this session, honorable delegates, esteemed partners, and of course, very importantly, the dynamic young people. Shukran. I just invite, we're gonna have a group photo with all the panelists here, and I think we move on to the next session right now. Thanks so much. Should we stand up? Thank you. Okay. That was a great session. Now, we're going to go straight into two separate sessions, the parallel sessions on greening. One is on greening TVET and skills development, building young people's capacities and skills for a just transition. And then the second one is on inclusive futures, paving the way for gender responsive, just transition. Yes, that's about it. So as you walk out, you can grab your water, coffee, there's some snacks, and if you can just continue into the breakout room. It's happening here and in the other one you guys must have seen yesterday. I don't know which one is here though. The second one? Okay, the second one. The Inclusive Futures is in this room. Thank you.